News at 7. We start tonight's bulletin with reaction to President Jacob Zuma's State of the Nation address. His promise that 2010 will be a year of action. But there's been criticism that his speech did not go far enough in detailing that action. One area he has touched on was education. But the largest teacher union in the country, SATU, says it'll oppose any attempt to reintroduce school inspectors to the classroom. During his address, President Zuma said all public schools will be assessed by officials from the Basic Education Department. SATU says any form of monitoring focusing solely on teachers will be rejected.
The education sector has cautiously welcomed the president's speech. Literacy and numeracy tests for grades 3, 6 and 9 have been given the green light by teacher unions. But they want the detail explained and what exactly is meant by independent moderators.
Each of our 27,000 schools will be assessed by officials from the Department of Basic Education. This will be recorded in an auditable written report.
Even further explanation is warranted here. The Basic Education Department says it's not a return to old policy.
No, we're not talking about inspectors here. We're talking about district officials going in to support schools. We're in the process of finalizing the implementation of the National Education Evaluation and Development Unit. In that unit, we will be consulting with unions on how we implement that evaluation process.
I think we're definitely moving towards that. I don't think there's any doubt. Otherwise, how are we going to measure what we achieve?
SATU says it's not opposed to monitoring, but wants a holistic approach. Teacher Union Naptosa says the planned assessment could work if there's no checklist approach. Faith Daniels, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The government has set targets for boosting electricity supply, speeding up land claims and developing a national strategy for dealing with chronic diseases. Minister of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation, Collins Shabane, roughed out the plans.
The Zuma administration shifting into action. It's one confronted by a litany of challenges, from poverty eradication to proper education. But critical to much-needed economic growth is energy security, and Zuma's government is looking to independent power producers. It wants private energy generators to start supplying 10% of the country's electricity demand.
It's a new concept in the country, and we believe that with the work which is being done by the Department of Energy and the sector departments, we would be able to meet the energy needs of the country in the long term.
To stimulate the economy, spending plans on infrastructure remain on track. Expenditure will rise to 846 billion in the next 3 years. That aside, ministers' performance will also be under scrutiny. They will sign performance agreements with the president. Chabo Mukone, SABC News, Parliament.
Opposition parties and some trade unions have been scathing in their assessment of the president's State of the Nation address. But business has hailed the speech as inspirational.
Some have found it hard to believe President Zuma's announcement that the government managed to create almost all the 500,000 jobs it promised last year. But the Department of Public Works says it's actually not difficult to see where the 480,000 jobs came from.
The expanded public works program looks at the following projects. It looks at low volume roads. It looks at stormwater drainage, sidewalks, trenching projects for water reticulation, and so on. Those are labor intensive and they are service delivery related. Then in the social sector, we have two categories. We have home-based community care workers, which we coordinate with health and social development. And we have early childhood development practitioners, which we coordinate with education. That's how we've been able to coordinate the figures that the president released yesterday.
But Labour Federation FEDUSA is still not satisfied.
To try to use this thing about the public works expanded program that was rolled out for job opportunities, to interpret that as creating decent work falls very short.
However, the president's announcement that ministers and all government employees will soon be forced to sign performance agreements struck the right chord with business.
The biggest problem here in South Africa is that implementation of decent policy has been our Achilles heel. So I think evaluating and monitoring and increasing accountability of government departments is, I think, the most important thing that I heard coming out of the State of the Nation address.
The address was very positive. It had many inspirational elements, and such an address needs to be that way orientated. It needs to send a positive message and seek to inspire the nation for the forthcoming year.
It now remains to be seen how the state machinery will go about turning the president's declaration of 2010 as a year of action into reality. Mbongeni Mutua, SABC News, Johannesburg.
20 years on, former political prisoners gathered in Mitchell's Plain today, along with President Zuma and former President Nelson Mandela. President Zuma told the group that the honoring of Madiba was a symbol of all those who fought for this country. And he said a bigger gathering of former political prisoners was necessary so that their contribution to the struggle could be marked.
World's most famous political prisoner. These are some of the people who served time behind bars for freedom. Today they came together to celebrate their contribution. But a bigger get-together is envisaged.
I think South Africa, if we don't do that, will lose a story of itself. What is it that in fact at the heart of the transition in South Africa? What is that happen? So that's the reason why I thought we should do that, and we are going to work on it.
Also present were those who defended freedom fighters.
I remember too that day in the court when he made that extraordinary speech, and when he came to the end before those fatal words, he took off his glasses and looked straight at the judge and told him that he was prepared to die.
And neighbors who were in the trenches with those in exile.
The British government tried to intervene to say, no, this is a Mutswana, but the boy said, no, he is our citizen. He is South African citizen. That's why I'm saying I became South African citizen before you people became South African citizens. All beliefs.
Some may not be satisfied with the direction the country is taking, but we're happy to meet old comrades in arms.
I still feel that we have let down our followers.
President Zuma described the occasion as recognition of those who sacrificed their lives in the struggle, especially those whose contributions have been forgotten. Mzondele Mbeje, SABC News, Parliament.